Today we're going to talk about fasteners, specifically staples. I have several different kinds here for several different reasons. Now when you talk about a fastener, excuse the squeaking by the way, that's my stool, we generally think of things like nails, whether they're collated or just a standard loose siding nail. But one of the most common fasteners that you find is a staple. And I'm going to exclude, quarter-inch crown staples and hammer staplers from this presentation because, well, I don't know. I just feel like talking about regular staples. So you've got staples for a whole bunch of different reasons. This one is for cables, and this one is a general purpose 3/8 crown staple used a lot. You use it in furniture making, and you use it in, I have a piece of hair stuck to my thumb, and you use it for hanging up Christmas lights, putting papers and putting posters on the walls. You use these a lot, and they come in several different sizes, but the general, that 3/8 crown, that's the distance from here to here is the crown, and these are the legs. That 3/8 crown is pretty much the most common size. But staplers do a lot of different things, and one of the most common ones that we think of is holding paper together. For that, you generally use a stapler such as this. This is just a regular home office stapler, which apparently has a jam in it. Oh, there we go. You use it in your office, you'd have it in your schoolroom. Just use it to put, 3 to 6 sheets of paper together. And they usually tell you how many it'll hold whenever you buy them. Probably about 8 to 10 at max. These are good staplers. I like this squeeze type because for your hands it's easy, especially if you're doing a lot. But if you got even more than that to do, you would use a stapler like this. This is called a Pliers Stapler. And there we go. These things can staple through quite a bit. If you have you could probably staple through your clipboard with this guy. And it has 2 different orientations. Okay. These are great for stapling cartons together, like thin cardboard or cardstock or something like that. Great for bags and stuff like that. And I happen to like the Walt Classic one. It's a good stapler that has held up to several years of pretty serious abuse. Been beat around the shop, and I use it with my coin holders too. So, sometimes I forget what I'm doing, and that's helpful. All right. Well, moving on, those hand staplers are great, but what if we've got something a little bit bigger to do? When we hang cables, we might want to use this cable boss, which I'm not really a big fan of, but it does perform its task pretty well. And actually, let me grab a piece of wood. Alright, so I've grabbed a piece of wood just from the scrap pile over there. We're going to put it down here. We know about the staplers for paper. So here's our wood, and we can just fire a cable boss into it. And these are great for holding bits of wire and cabling in place, especially low voltage and just regular Romex cable. I like them because it's convenient and fast. I don't like them because if you look here, you can see that it doesn't always sink the staple all the way down, and that's just doesn't work all that well. Alright, so then we have your standard Carpenter stapler. Whoops, this one's jamming. There. It's actually firing 2 at once. I may need to clean it again. This one's kind of an antique. I got it in a box full of them, and it does a good job, and it's small. I really like that about it. This one's very small. Then you have like the Walt Classic here. Now this guy is neat because it can fire several different types of staples. You've got your standard crown staples. your U cable, which these are for like low voltage cabling and things like that. It wouldn't be used for Romex. And if you look at the front here, the guide on the front here has a little cutout for those wires, and it works pretty good. But be sure and buy those rounded top staples if you want to do that. And then of course it fires brads as well. Now these are great staplers. It has a plus or minus for how much pressure it puts on it. I don't buy it. It doesn't seem to make any difference which side I use. But it seems like a good stapler, and I've been using it for a couple of years now. And then here's your old homeowner's T50 from Arrow. Now these guys you see the most, and I've got several. Oh, I've got the cable guide on this one. See if this little piece right here just kind of slips on and off, which is kind of hard to get on there. There we go. This is the cable guide for these older ones, and it literally slips on and off so that you can use it with cables. And for these, they didn't use a U-shaped cable. They just used your standard T50 staples and didn't sink them flush. And actually, that's a pretty handy feature because you can staple some thicker stuff without any problems. So we also have pneumatic staplers, which this is a 3/8 T50 stapler, and it just plugs into your air supply and you would fire it in. I like these. They're handy for things like screens, and actually I've used them on soffit venting too, soffit screen. Just handy to use, especially if you've got to do something quickly. I would not really consider this an upholstery stapler. However, you can use it for that. Now this guy is an actual upholstery stapler. It has a 1/2-inch crown staple. Let's see if I've got any in there. There we go. It's got a 1/2-inch crown staple, and we'll compare it to the 3/8 on the bottom there. Obviously it's an 1/8 inch wider, and it's also pneumatic. Now these guys, these will cost you a little bit of money, but this is more for upholstery, and part of what makes it for that is this long nose. You can really get it in there, and they actually make them with much longer noses as well, so you can really get in there and staple up close and fire into frames and things like that without without getting in your own way. So that's pretty handy for that. Alright, so I'm gonna look you up here at the pile of staplers on my saw bench here. Okay, so let me get these out of the way. And I have a lot of staplers because this is the most commonly borrowed tool in my shop. Everybody wants to borrow a staple gun. Oh, I haven't even talked about these guys. These are Duct Staplers, and let's see if I got something I can demonstrate on. Alright, I hate to staple a good box. There shouldn't be any in this one, so I'm going to set it aside. But these are both the same. And so when they fire a staple, the staple comes out looking like this. So it literally fires in and shapes itself as it goes in. And there's that fuzz. I've got fuzz glued to me. Which is really handy for ductboard, is what it's more specifically used for, ductboard insulation. And it binds the foil to the board itself. You can also use it in cardboard cartons. And we now have it stapled on there. And I just pulled it loose. You can see the staple right there. So that's a pretty cool feature, and very handy if you have to join pieces of paper or cardboard to each other. Then, on that same note, I have this guy. This is called a Carton Stapler. This is called a Carton Stapler, and this machine, because that's what it is. I've got the wrong size staples in it. There we go. Alright. Staples out these nice big 1 3/8 staples. Alright. One of the things that you notice when you start to put that down is there's two little claws that come down and pierce the material that you're putting the staples in. When you go down a little further, the staples themselves come out. You can see the legs right there, and then they fold down, and this thing takes some effort. There we go. And again, I've got the wrong size staple, so it actually missed. But then it folds down on top of these little claws. So the claws actually will pull cardboard together, and that's what it's called. It's called a carton closer, and then fold the leg over. Alright, now to show you the last stapler. Alright, so this stapler is called a carton closer, shit, I'm still on that one. This machine is called a stitcher, and it's called a wire stitcher, specifically because it uses wire, and you might as well just call it a stapler. So you get these big spools of wire, you feed it through, and on this side is a wire straightener. There's 3, and then there's another wire straightener here, so it gets straightened up nice and straight to go through. This is the piece that pushes it through the paper, and then down here is the anvil that forms, that shapes it. You can see there's a piece right there, yeah, that shapes the staple. So let me turn it on, get the flywheel going, get this wire out of the way. And I have a stack of about 40 sheets of paper here. We're just gonna hit the foot pedal down here. And there we go. A staple. And this thing will staple as fast as you can go. So, and don't get onto me for wasting paper. This paper is actually, most of it's used. I just have a few sheets of clean on top so you can't see what's in there. There we go. Now this thing has some cool features. Just like the rest of the staplers. It's made to bind paper together. But this one is called a saddle stitching machine. A wire saddle stitching machine. I think I've already said the wire part. And it folds over to 90 degrees so that if you are making booklets, so pretend I'd already folded this and it had a nice crease. If you are making booklets, there we go, you would take and not put your hand under that thing. Because understand that this thing is basically a press with a stapler attached. So if you had been making a booklet and you had that crease right there, that's what it would do. So, all that, what stapler do I need? Well, it really depends on what you're doing. If you have to do simply staple, 3 to 10 sheets of paper most of the time, one of these guys will do you okay. If you've got to do more than 10, I would go ahead and get one of these. That's for joining staples together. Now if you had to do about 100, that big thing over there will do it. But it's not always about joining paper to something. What if I have to staple something to another thing? Well, if you have a relatively good hand strength, then you could get one of these. Or a standard T50 arrow fastener, which will be, they're usually a great big old silver stapler that looks very similar to this guy. This one's an antique. My other one is over there in my B box. Actually, there's 2 of them. There's one in the small engine repair box and one in the B box. These are great for things like screen and wire mesh and hanging posters up. So that's what you'd want. What if I've got some cables and wires? Well, you could get a cable boss, one of these old T50s with a guide, or one of these multi-purpose ones that you can use several different types of staples with, and brads. My hands aren't that strong. Well, if your hands aren't that strong, then you have some more options. You can use an electric stapler. It uses T50 staples, just like your standard staplers. Or you can use a pneumatic stapler. They're a little bit more expensive than a standard stapler, but they'll get you through just about any job with minimal effort with your hands. Be sure and oil them daily. What about upholstery? Well, these two will work. They're not ideal, but they'll do an okay job. Or you could spend more for a premium upholstery stapler. And then, if you have cartons to close up, or cardboard to staple, one of these three will do you. I don't really recommend this guy, because these things are very expensive. I just happened to luck into this one. My neighbor gave it to me because he also closes a lot of cartons, and they're generally pretty expensive, but you can find pedal-powered versions that are foot-powered, and you can find pneumatic versions of this stapler. And again, it is called a carton closer or a carton stapler. You can also use one of these with a longer stapler on it. These are known as duct staplers. So, there we go. If you need a stapler, now, for the most part, you'll know what to use. Yes, there are many other different options, many other different varieties, but this is a good general selection, and as the most borrowed and used tool in my shop, I have a lot of them. So, there you go. Have a good night.